Hello, everybody. My name is Patrick Collins. This is Failing Upwards, and I'm a lot less hyped than I was in the last video. I am drinking decaffeinated Crepe Crush, not sponsored. And I think today we're going to be taking a look at the continued harassment, mental torture, mental and physical torture, and detainment of Kilmar Abrego Garcia by the U.S. government and other governments, but on behest of the U.S. government. Now, let's start with a little backstory. Kilmar Abrego Garcia did come into the country illegally, El Salvadorian native. He came to the country illegally to Maryland to live with his brother when he was 16 years old to escape the gang violence in El Salvador. Now, you may say it's cut and dry at that point. It's illegal to come into the country. If you commit a crime, you should leave the country. So as soon as you enter the country, you've committed a crime. It should be a simple vetting process, and then crossing the border should be easy, and you should be able to live here and contribute to society if you'd like to. I don't see any reason why not. We make the immigration process in this country so ridiculously hard. It could span years and years with just the tiniest, minute rules screwing you over. An error in paperwork. You have to stay in this country for a certain amount of time. You have to go and stay in your country for a certain amount of time, without the proper paperwork. It requires a lot of money. So it's not just simply cut and dry like everybody can do it, but it does require a lot of time, effort. And I think if you're going to require a bunch of steps to become legal in this country, it should probably be a lot simpler. It should probably be a lot simpler to get someone up and running, to so they can have their feet hit the ground and start contributing to this country if that's what they would like to do. So, by all accounts, Kilmar Garcia was a hardworking man. He worked odd jobs, and he had a wife and a family. Now, he would. Now, here's an interesting thing about immigrants that a lot of people don't know is that Kilmar would working these jobs would be paying into taxes, and Kilmar at the end of the day will not be receiving any benefits for the taxes that he paid into. So to break that down, it's like no matter what you're working, your taxes are being taken out of your check. You're working, you're going sales tax. These taxes that you pay for in your everyday life, and when as you're working, they go towards the benefits that an American citizen can receive throughout the years. So Security, Medicaid, food stamps, obviously those are being slashed to high heaven, but you have access to those in theory. And an immigrant without a legal immigrant will not have access to those. So they are a net benefit to the economy. But people want to say, they're coming and using all of our resources. That's not true. So Kilmar Abrego Garcia, he's been here since 2012. Now, in 2019, where he admitted to being illegal, he was detained along with three other people in a car park of Home Depot in Maryland. Now, this is where it already gets to the point of profiling, racial stereotyping, overall not having the common sense and critical thinking skills, which seems to happen a lot with people in positions of power by by accident or maliciously. So the three people, they were pulled over in the parking lot of Home Depot. I wonder what they were doing there. Let's say, to use common sense, they're probably looking for work. Um, they're probably day laborers trying to find uh, work, and their excuse, as cited here, to profile him as an MS-13 gang member was a Chicago Bulls hat and a hoodie with rolls of money covering the eyes, ears, and mouth of the presidents on the separate denominations. If these are uh, telltale signs of being in a gang, being an MS-13, wouldn't that make it that over half the city of Chicago, on during basketball season, is MS-13? uh and it really, that's the really all you have to say. I don't understand how that would make any sense. How just because it has horns and the devil has horns, we'll see a little bit later that MS-13 gang members don't seem to have a lot of subtlety when it comes to pronouncing their love and affiliation with the gang. And so it's like you're making correlations that don't actually exist. During this interview, uh, they uh, the officers were advised by a proven and reliable source, not known, that Abrego Garcia was an active MS-13's Western clique with the rank of Shikeo. Uh, but even the gang of the gang expert, Mr. W, says it's not a rank, but it's used to refer to recruits who are yet to be initiated. So which one is it? Now, that was used to try to corroborate that he was an MS-13 gang member, that he was a danger, and that's why he needed to be deported. Especially using the Alien Enemies Act, which which is an archaic act that was made for uh, enemies back in the 1800s, and then I'm pretty sure we also brought it out for the Japanese during the World War II, for their internment camps, um, and uh, it's basically gives the government the right to arrest people and illegally detain and deport them on with impunity, and they can enact, and he and Trump enacted it without any major evidence. So another piece of evidence that they used was, again, his tattoos that he had on his hand. They they saw a Spanish person with a tattoo and it's automatically gang affiliation. They saw somebody with a tattoo uh, for his mom. They saw somebody with a tattoo for autism awareness. And for Abrego Garcia, they saw tattoos on his hands: marijuana leaf, a smiley face, cross, and a skull. So they're trying to claim the marijuana leaf is M, smiley face is S, the cross is a 1, for one Lord, or I think that's how it is. And then the skull is a 3 for some reason. I'm not exactly sure on that one. And but the what was worse than that is live on national TV, we had Trump claiming not only that this was that this is a real tattoo. But we had Trump claiming that this was a real tattoo. It has the letters MS-13 across the knuckles in superimposed. Not the same font, not the same darkness. Not definitely not done at the same time. Oh, look at this picture. There. So faded tattoos, and then what was this? A sloppy MS paint job, maybe a typewriter. You know, I've seen plenty of people with hand tattoos. They just don't look like that. They just don't look like that. They have a bend, a curve. And then we had Trump coming out on national TV in an interview claiming up and down that those were real. If I was that interviewer, I would have I would have grabbed that picture and made him tell me in front of me and the whole entire world that that's a real tattoo in front of everybody. I think that that interview was definitely being a pussy for that. So he should have done definitely been a little harder on Trump during that moment. So these tattoos, they say they're consistent with MS-13. Um, Now let's look at MS-13 tattoos. I think I've said something about that earlier. Now here's some of the tattoos. MS right on this guy's face. Uh, MS-13 right here on this guy's back. MS-13 on this guy's hand. MS-13 on this guy's back. MS-13 on this guy's back. Uh, MS-13 on this guy's chest. MS-13 on this guy's chest. Yeah, on this guy's like neck. So, look, I don't want to say that those aren't considered gang tattoos, but if you look at all these big MS across this guy's chest, um, I don't know if MS-13 and their gang members who are affiliated with them are known for subtlety when it comes to their tattoos. Uh, Not so much, So yeah, 13. Like I don't, but you're again making correlations where there are none. He was chased out of his own country for gang violence. Why would he then, join a gang and perpetuate that same kind of violence on others? I'm not saying it hasn't happened, but if that was the case, why wouldn't he just stay there and be in the gang war? Why would he flee for fear of persecution? So, what other allegations? What other evidence are they trying to put together and base the original deportation off of? In 2021, his wife, Jennifer, filed a protective order petition against him, alleging he had physically attacked her on multiple occasions. She said in a statement that she decided not to follow through with the court process at the time, and that she and her husband were able to work through the situation privately as a family, including by going to counseling. She described her husband as a loving partner and father, and has repeatedly denied he is an MS-13 gang member. Now, I will never condone violence of any kind, really, for the most part, unless in like extreme situations. But I, I really try not to. um, and I don't want to say but. Especially when it comes to couples, a lot of things can get thrown out of hand. And while I am not going to say I she was lying the first time or she was lying the second time, I just know, even from personal experience, that relationships are tricky things. And sometimes we both parties, sometimes one party, they do things that are uncalled for, and they can be worked out. I can only go off what she says. And if she believes they were able to work through the situation, then who am I to say that that was the wrong decision and that they should break up their family? He should go to prison. She should put him in prison. They need to do this, that, or third. Who am I to say? I try not to really get involved in private matters like that, especially between couples. All I can go by is what is said, and it seemed to be worked out. Does that absolve him of what he may or may not have done? No, absolutely not. But if they have worked it out, who am I to fault? Either who am I to fault? And the second piece of evidence that they're trying to use against him majorly was suspicion of human trafficking in December of 2022. He was pulled over in Tennessee by a highway patrolman, and he had 8 other people in his car without luggage. But there was no charges brought up against him, no tickets written. It was just a offhand statement. And I wonder why these offhand statements keep getting made of gang member at a Home Depot or human trafficking in Tennessee with a truck full of Spanish people, more than likely. It couldn't again be someone looking for work, someone going back and forth to work. No, it has to be because their skin is brown. It automatically has to be something nefarious going on. So let's it's profiling, and that's really what started this. They took this man. They took this man from his home that had been in his home for 13 years and deported him back to El Salvador to CCOT, the slave labor prison, the maximum security prison down there. That we have Trump has an agreement with the El Salvadorian president Bukele, and we pay them and they detain these people, no questions asked. They give these reasons. He was a gang member, possible human trafficker, very bad guy, right? That was their original take, and then they stopped. They flipped it up, and they actually admitted that it was an administrative error. Now, they later changed the story again to know he was actually dangerous, but there was a time where it's not that they were telling the truth, but they were getting as close to as they could. Now, as he was in El Salvador, I'm not exactly sure why, but his name seemed to gain some traction out of the hundreds of people that were there. For some reason, he got picked up in the news, and they were really running with it. And he became poster child for all the people that were being detained and illegally deported. So the activists, the rights groups, the Maryland um, politicians, everybody rallied around him, and they there was even people that went to El Salvador to go and meet with him. There was a whole thing where Bukele took him out of prison. Didn't want him to meet at CCOT. Took him out. Met at a nice hotel, trying to give the veneer of, oh, we're treating this guy great. Funnily enough, uh, I don't think it really fooled anybody, but They're saying, we're treating this guy great. There's no problems over here. We're not having any issues. This notorious prison that Kilmar Abrego Garcia was being held in with hundreds of other, uh, mostly Venezuelan nationals. And it was so bad there where they were being mentally tortured, physically tortured. The conditions were extremely poor. They were given no food, no clothing, or not much food. And when they were given food, it wasn't it wasn't very healthy. It wasn't very clean. The They were given daily beatings. They weren't giving a way to clean themselves. They weren't given clothing. The only time that they were given these amenities were before big check-ins by politicians or certain people that had to come and survey the prison. And then they were given clothes, and it made to seem like the veneer of they were treating these people well. But they ended up releasing these people back to Venezuela, and for an exchange of some of U.S. nationals and political prisoners, and luckily, so they're out of CTOT. And Abrego Garcia was eventually brought back to America. Now, why was he brought back to America? Was it the multiple judges that ruled that he needed to be returned? Was it after the multiple judges ruled that they needed to turn the planes back from even deporting them in the first place? To the multiple people that want that say that's illegal for the Alien Enemies Act to be enforced when we are not at an active wartime? Or was it for the Trump administration's reasoning, which they claimed to only bring him back into the country to face human trafficking charges? So he comes back into the country. Tennessee is indicting him with human trafficking charges, probably on the behest of the federal government. None of these judges want to go against Trump, but they don't find enough evidence to hold him without bail. So he's released last week on Friday. And then he has a weekend with his family in Maryland because, they take him back to Maryland. And he has a weekend with his family. And on Monday, today, he was supposed to go and do an immigration check-in. And he was taken back into custody by ICE. Now, why are they doing this? And why is ICE taking him again? Because, and not saying where or really why, but let's look at it realistically. They don't want him talking. That's number one. But other than that, you see these they're on a power grab. They're scrambling. You can tell because of the deal that they offered him. He wants to try his case in court, pleading not guilty to the human trafficking. And the federal government says that he can plead guilty to the human trafficking and get deported to Costa Rica because a judge ruled that he couldn't be deported to El Salvador, even though that's his native country, because of the gang violence that he would suffer. So he could either be deported to Costa Rica, and that's if he pled guilty to human trafficking, or if he continued to make a big fuss, they would deport him to Uganda. So they're just threatening him, blackmailing him. We can make this easy for you, or we can make this hard for you. Now, Is Kilmar going to fold? I highly doubt it. Because if he was going to fold, he would have already folded. He seems to be a lot more strong willed. And we know that the fascists are weak. They don't actually have strength, they don't actually have backbone. So I do believe that he will win. I don't believe that he will take the deal, and I really hope he doesn't, because then that just gives them more power. It sets a precedent that I don't really like, because it just gives them the idea that they can just steamroll over anybody, puff out their chest, make their threats. Well, I, for one, am tired of it, and I'm glad that somebody's fighting back. His lawyers, they've already came this far. They're not gonna let it them get steamrolled. So I hope that at the end of the day, Kilmar gets to go back to his family. He gets to live out his life. He just gets to be a citizen of this country, because at the end of the day, we all deserve freedom and happiness. It's not just a right that should be given to certain people depending on the color of your skin, or where you were born, or your social status, your economic status.